Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are warned that this podcast may contain the voices and names of people who have passed away. Listeners are also advised that this podcast may have references to trauma, violence, and other content that may be triggering. It is not suitable for children, and listener discretion is advised. The producers of Blak Justice recognise the traditional owner groups and clans on the lands on which it is recorded, the Yagara and Turrbal people in Brisbane. They pay respect to the Aboriginal elders, both past and present. This country has never been ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
It's still come back to that fire, for healing. Yeah.
And the colony knows when these fires happen. They've had it in the early 1800s. They've smelt that fire. So when it happens again, it brings out that healing, and they're reminded of our sovereignty was never ceded.
This is Blak Justice, a podcast sharing the lived realities of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people impacted by the justice system. Stories from survivors, families and communities. Justice told our way. I'm your host, Carly Wallace. I've spent over 20 years in the media and community sectors storytelling and working with our mob. I'm an Aboriginal woman with lived experience. My family and my community have been impacted by incarceration in many ways. So join me on Blak Justice, where truth-telling leads the way. Because our stories matter and justice begins with telling them. Right now in Brisbane, on the grounds of Victoria Park, or Barrambin, a fight is unfolding over land, legacy and who gets to decide the future of this place. The Queensland Government is pushing ahead with wanting to build a new Olympic stadium, a massive 63,000-seat venue, expected to cost around $3.6 billion. Early works are set to begin from the 1st of June 2026, once the land is officially handed over for construction. This stadium is set to host the opening and closing ceremonies for the 2032 Olympics. But it's being built on land with deep Aboriginal history, a place that's been a meeting ground for people long before colonisation. And not everyone is standing by and letting it happen. Right now, a Goori Tent Embassy has been set up on that land, led by Derek Sandy Jr. and his father, Uncle Derek Sr., along with community and other supporters. The Goori Tent Embassy started small with a sacred fire and now physically stands in the way of this development, calling for recognition, for land justice and for country to be protected for future generations. This isn't just about a stadium. This is about who gets heard, who gets consulted, and who gets pushed aside again in the name of progress. Because for many in our communities, this fight isn't new. It's part of a much larger story of colonisation, of lands being taken, and about mob continuing to stand up, resist and fight for what's rightfully theirs. So what does it mean to fight for sovereign Blak justice? Well, it starts here at the Goori camp in Barrambin around the sacred fire.
Good spirit. Yeah, singing out to the land and the water. Yeah, so welcome our visitors to Goori camp.
Yeah, Derek Orman Powder, Yeramala, Gangaloo, and Waka Waka, and Gubba Gubby.
Yeah, and I'm Derek Jr. DJ. Orem, and Sandy mob too. Yeah, I'm same as Dad's mob there through Dad, and then Mum's mob is where Migachin Yorongpan peoples of the Yagara, and also Yugambeh people too, the Logan and the Tweed and Scenic Rim area. So that's who we is.
And where are we right now? Where are we sitting? Tell us a little bit about this place.
Yeah, so we're here at a very important camp for Meganton Yagara people, and also Goori people, all the Goori people. It's Victoria Park here, and it's the old campsite and camp area, traditional camp area. Because we're talking about an ancient city, we got to think of those ancient times, like thousands and thousands of our Goori mob. So this was a northwest camp. So any mobs travelling from Enoggera, Capera, up Strathpine or inland, Sanford, Debra, they'd all come through that way, through here. Or down from those mountains, that rainforest country, Uniborough, they'd all come down this way and camp up through here. So yeah, that's how your dad's side, eh, Dad?
Yeah, same way.
Walker and that?
Yep, up Waka, they'd come down through Sandput, down Petrie, you know, and Strathpine, the Mole people. On my father's side, they were art, you know. I'm a heart too, from Waka and Gubby. So on Dad's side, the old Duke Hart, that's the old fella, Sherberg, Waka, you know, he was like a headman for ceremonies and that.
So all them mobs would stay here, and then over down near the southwest mob, so them Ipswich mob, them Toowoomba mob, come through, cross that Riverview, cross the Brisbane River, go up through Moggle, got the old Moggle borering there. Then they'll come around through Mount Cootha. Mount Cootha used to be, it was that spirit mountain with the Gutcha, that honey. They say that bee's that same bee up Daintree way too, they reckon. Yeah. Them,
Little native bees.
Them white-fella scientists. But, that's all that kinship songlines and that ties into what we stand up for, you know. And then, that's so south-southwest mob stay there at Victoria Barracks. Then the south-southeast mob would go to the windmill there at Spring Hill. Then the north-northeast were over here near the Eka Showgrounds. Then all this water source here that we're trying to protect, like York's Hollow Creek and York's Hollow waterholes, and the natural springs that come through Victoria Park. That's what we're all here fighting for in that environmental law, the Heritage Protection Act, for our mobs and that. Yeah. So it's a very special place, eh?
Yeah, special place.
As someone I'm Bummer, you know, and I know you got them ties too up Gukuyalanji ways, up Mossman, and southeast Queensland. I've been here now for a long time and second home for me, but it's funny that, you know, that kinship that you're talking about, them songlines and those things that connect us right up north, you know, historically, and then being, I still say, a visitor to this place, you know, where we're sitting today in Victoria Park. It's very, you know, for those who've never been to Brisbane, it's a beautiful place. You know, there's a golf course next to it, but when you're describing it, it is that meeting place. You know, around Brisbane, there's a lot of different places, like you said, where mob come and camp and yarn and meet and water and fire and resources. And this is one of those places when you sit here and you listen, we can all hear the birds in the background, sun's going down. And, you know, why you're here is another form of Blak Justice. So this podcast is about Blak Justice, but the ties that all the mob here in Brisbane, despite what their tribes are, their clans, everyone is in the same place and has different shared resources, languages, ways. So this area here, Blak Justice, what's that mean when we talk about that as Black sovereign mob? And speak to that from, you know, you've set up this tent embassy. Tell me why you did that.
Yeah, I just feel like it's getting to a point where these type of lands where it's, you know, crown lands, where it's the British Crown has claimed their sovereignty over our country. We haven't ceded our sovereignty. They seen this continent as terra nullius, place with no people, so when they arrived they claimed their sovereignty over here. And in order for treaties to happen the two sovereign parties have to negotiate about that country and organise and come to an agreement, or they don't have to too. But that's when that resistance comes in too, peaceful resistance or full strong warrior resistance. I just noticed over time our processes are being messed around with, the state legislation, over 15 state legislations that was just seized, including the Cultural Heritage Act and the Land Rights Act. And I see these things as artefacts of legislation for our people, that our old people and our ancestors that put in place, and they shouldn't be moved. It's like artefact on the land. It's an imprint in legislation that shouldn't be moved. But in this case, in our state of Queensland, that it is moved. It's been moved. It's been changed up to suit those other people, visitors here. And so that justice is about standing up for our sovereignty that was never ceded. We got these mad KRs, wild cockatoos flying over.
Yeah.
Little glass too,
We're
I
getting
think.
visitors coming.
Listen to
That's
them,
right.
yeah.
They come down because
Coming down, eh?
mob come. They know when this.
Well, that's the thing, right? This is not just mobs country. It's all the kinship that is for here, the animals, the ecosystem. That's part of protecting land. And what you were talking about. So how long ago did you set up this tent embassy, and how did you get to those yarns between yourselves and to actually just go, that's it, we're doing it?
Yeah. We started 12 days ago on the 5th of April. Well, we rocked up here night before, slept here, no fire. Because, that proper way, you sleep, no fire first.
You just
feel there.
Feel the country,
And then have that fire, second one,
see we see animals and that. When we started the fire the first night, all the animals came out,
Mm.
Yeah.
But it's also
Second
been a
night.
build-up, from some of our elders, are part of our native title group, Yagara Yugapul Aboriginal Corporation. Some of our elders have passed away and that, and they lived on this park in the early 1950s and that. So they had that connection, some of grandmother and great uncles and that, aunties. So it was just a build-up of pressure that us mob have when we're trying to, keep that sovereignty going and keep culture going in this both worlds, So it's just a build-up yarns, and when them old people passed away, we had the grieving process for them all and that, and then come out the back end of all of that, we started to think about planning to do this. And because back in 2019 and before COVID, that's when our elders had those consultation yarns about that Victoria Park vision. Yeah. And we got some of that old documentation here at the embassy. We're going to set up a little library tent, so mob can come down, read decolonisation books and all of that.
What was that vision for anyone that doesn't know that? Describe what your elders had that vision then. What did that look like?
So yeah, that vision was about having like a cultural centre and community centre here, a part of that vision in the park. And when they restored country here and that, they had so many, of our peoples doing that restoration on country and all that. And like there was going to be a lease between the people and the council, similar to what Musgrave Park has, and how we are able to lease those countries and then build those Indigenous orgs, build those events up for, connection to country and sharing of culture and that. And so since the elders kind of passed and that, and COVID came along, and that's when you've seen that breakdown of yarn and change of governments, and then they were able to then, start to transfer it over from that Crown land to freehold land. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're able to do the fire, because it's still that federal lands under that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act, and you can have that sacred fire and that living heritage. And yeah, it was the only kind of narrow avenue to do, because a lot of the other legislations were seized, and and it was kind of grew from the idea of other inspirations too, standing up for places on country that are being injured or have discretion that's happening to them, you know. So like the Stop Adani movement there with the brothers up there and uncles up there too, eh?
Yeah. Yep, Stop Adani.
Yeah.
And wind farms and solar panels too, you know, like other things like that. But mainly with the water, we got a few springs that they're tapping into, Central Queensland. And
Yep, they need protecting.
Yeah.
But that's how we kind of seen that was the avenue,
Yeah.
for the act.
So we
And put a sacred site for our mob and
knew,
have an embassy, you know.
I always knew Victoria Park. This was the oldest area. And I remember coming here when I was a kid myself, swimming over here at Centenary. We all used to go to over here, bouncing on the 1 metre and 3 metre and that. But we came across here, but it was, you know, still the same. But we just, for the spring and what's under the ground here, this old
Spring water.
There's spring water. You'll see a bitumen here on a footpath, and you'll see it coming down the hill from the golf club way. It stops, and then it comes around.
Starts
and
up
again. So that tells you they didn't want to do the footpath going around that over this hill.
Dig up the country.
So the water's there under the ground. That's what tells me. That's why they stopped the footpath here.
Yep.
So what do they want to build here then? What are you trying to save this park from at the moment in 2026?
We're trying to stop the stadium from being built here.
Olympic Stadium?
Yeah, the Olympic Stadium to be built here on Aboriginal sacred site. And because it's destroying our country and our sacred sites and our artefacts, because they fast-tracked the legislation to seize those cultural heritage acts and all of that, that pushes the governments of the day to start to do testing and stuff. So that's why we've set up now, a couple of months earlier, because we want to start to document some of that living evidence that's on the park. So we've found stone axes, grooving stones, cutting tools, a few different things so far.
Yep. Just seeing all the animals tells you. You've seen that big carpet snake, sugar gliders, the owls.
Yep. And that's all them Goori kinship totems too.
That's the
that we have.
Totems, yeah.
The land's alive. Yeah.
That's
so
the
we want to bring the native title group in with the archaeologists, because they're not going to allow paid cultural heritage. We're just going to volunteer the embassy members that have done cultural heritage in the past to do it for our mobs, to find those things, eh?
Yeah. The embassy's just sitting on the two gullies, like the two springs, and we're sitting right on the bank in the middle. The other golf gully come around, and we were on the right-hand gully. But the council yard over there, the water coming from there, you know?
Yeah. So
I
it's
believe
coming
that's
from
where
the
the
top.
campsite was, because that's where the bunya trees and the hoop pine is.
Yeah.
So I believe that's where the campsite could have been there too. Yeah, we haven't seen the map of the place yet, but just looking at
stadium
it, we can read
map.
country anyways, you know?
Yeah.
You can read country everywhere you go. No matter what paddock the my fellows might say or what, but this is the main place, central for the CBD of Brisbane.
Yeah.
I don't know if we lose Musgrove in 2031, you know, where else we going to go for NAIDOC? Maybe it could be here, or, you know, who knows? Might be no more NAIDOC.
Yeah.
This is the thing, right? Like, and especially like we see it more down in cities and places like that. That development, you know, it's been happening in Brisbane a long time compared to, you know, regional remote areas where, especially where I come from, I didn't catch a bus till I moved to Townsville, mind you. But, you know, things like that, like development-wise, cities, it's been happening for a long time. The taking of land, the building on land, country. and mob having to then adapt to that environment instead of going, hey, these are our parcels here of land where we still have country, still have ceremony. Our like you said, country is alive and our kinship is still alive here. What's that feel like, I guess, as mob who've had to come from that and continuously have to fight for what's left of what they are trying to develop? What's that feel like?
It feels upsetting, you know. You're trying to honour them ancestors, them old people, but also keep your story places alive and be strong on who you are as black people. That's the hard thing. And yeah, that's why we fight for these type of things too. You know, we need country, we need that water flowing, we need fire going. Yeah. Those instinct things that our mob, you know, carry in our DNA, and that having that balance, you know, between the Western world and that is important, I think. So
Yes.
Isn't it funny though, like when our country gets taken or destroyed or developed, and then our mob tend to fight between ourselves because we knew boundaries before that building was there or before a stadium or whatever it be. We then turn on each other because of that colonisation, which is still going. It's a tough one, because when you take country from mob, our people, our soul hurts, our spirit hurts, and then what happens? There's drug, alcohol, mental illness, incarceration, which we hear a lot about here on Blak Justice. But, you know, what we're talking about is if you contain these places and maintain them, you will have less of those things. And, you know, governments of every single state and territory try to find the solution to keep our people well, to do all the... And here's the answer, right? It's always been country. It's always been culture.
Yeah, 100%, eh? Yeah, definitely. Like, it needs to be coming back to country, coming back to that fire, water, and being present on the land for a bit. That's the main thing, I think, and... Yeah, we have the solution. Yeah, for that.
That's the
we
whole
have the
idea.
self-determination. You know, we can self-liberate what we need to do as people, and that fire is that central meeting point. You know, any law,
talk truth around
any
it,
law, anywhere you go, we all know that fire, as all Aboriginal people, you know, and other cultures too, that fire is that central meeting place, and we come to that fire, you know, how we introduce, how our ancestors say hello, the gifts and that given, you know, love that's shared,
all that,
and the connection, you know.
Yeah, it prevents us, right?
And then you don't think about going out doing wrong and whatever. And
that's why we doing it, to encourage others. Because after the COVID, the marching stopped. A lot of things fell through. Liberal, you know, they were sitting there waiting.
Yeah,
and you know, they knew all these places, Crown land was sitting there. Then they, you know, make their move when mob think it's time to, you know, sit down and relax. But I thought of this place a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Memory of it, you know. Yeah. On the other side. Yeah.
It's important to keep these spaces and places, because, the more you drive mob away from country and away from cultural significant places and spaces, that's when our spirit and our mental go, our wellness, and then it leads to more problems which they spend millions of dollars trying to fix. And if you start here, you're not going to get that. But I guess that's, you know, part of why you have, big reason why you have set this up. What's the significance of this park? And if you could say to any sort of government where to build a stadium that's not here, you know what I mean? Because what's the solution? Woo!
So I reckon, big wins come through. So he said, probably wants to announce this Barrambin. Barrambin's that southwesterly winds and that come through, and That's what the top part up there, top high country, you get the 4 winds, you know, north, south, east, west. So that's that part of that Barrambin southwesterly winds. And that rainfall that's brought from those winds, storm. And then we have that Wallenbar, the brim down here in the creek, Breakfast Creek and that, where that water flow goes through. That Wallenbar, the place of the brim. And the Warrajum, which is that eel one.
Yeah.
And also has that spiritual connection with that serpent too. Lives in the water hole there, so fresh salt and
that's
windy place.
I think the Warrajum comes up these 2 springs there. Yeah. Because Breakfast Creek's just over there. Them eel can walk, you know, to on land too, you know, other places.
They travel upstream, you know, that eel song line.
Where the Warrajum would be here, the 2 big springs here.
So that's the spiritual significance and cultural significance of the place. Yeah, and then all our mobs connect in through them totems and all that.
I think that's the thing when we're talking about boundaries and mob and country. Yeah, we all had our areas, and where we're exactly from. But let's be real, we all had to travel. My great-grandfather and great-grandparents and my mum's side, they had to go down to the Gilly, down the bottom of the Gillies Range, to go get fish or to meet up with them other clans down there. Then come up, bring vegetables up. We moved around. We shared resources. We shared country and shared languages,
Yeah.
And colonisation, and when governments and white fellas say, oh, no, that's my patch of land, or no, this is yours and this is, our mob, we didn't do that. We're sharing people,
Sharing knowledge, sharing country.
100%. Yeah.
So
there's a level of decolonisation that you have to do.
Outsiders, coming into Brisbane, you wouldn't make it past Sandgate or into the CBD. If you didn't know the tribes, like back then, the smoke signal and mob knew where
big
to
ancient
come.
city, yeah.
They knew
The
of
protocol.
Sandgate camps and then Victoria Park camp.
Yeah.
They knew because when they did the Heka, grandparents worked in the Heka in the stables, doing all the horses and all that they would stay here. Yeah. They would work
Victoria
for the
Park.
Hekas, do the thing for the wife,
So how long are you prepared to protest for and keep this tent embassy up for?
Well, we're willing to do it
As long as it takes.
long as it takes, because
Until we get the message
we had a yarn
across.
today. Yeah. It's funny because we had a yarn to the liaison officers from the Fortitude Valley and they come down.
So
But there's always this fight between state legislation and federal legislation. And
Tell us about that, bro. What's the difference, for the average person that doesn't know, and what gives you the right as a sovereign person to come and set up here? People are like, how are they still there and not getting dragged away? Tell that yarn, because most people wouldn't know.
there's certain federal lands and crown lands that the British sovereignty has claimed, and that's connected back to the king and that. And obviously the late Queen as well. And those are managed by the federal government in Canberra. So each state and territory have certain crown lands that are withheld by the councils and governments as crown lands. So those different lands, obviously they're on certain traditional countries or different areas. And, they could be sacred sites, places of trade or whatever. So that's where this park is. It's a campsite for all the Goori mob. So, those different crown lands that you have, that's how it's managed by the federal government. And with the state government, there's certain things they can't do whilst on those crown lands. So the sovereign fire, the sacred fire that we're doing, that's under the federal act. There's certain acts that the sovereign fire has acknowledged. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Land Rights Act 1994, and then this Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act, the Living Heritage one, 1984. So there's all different acts, and also the Cultural Heritage Act 2003. So depending on the different states and governments, they have their different legislations. So here in Queensland, those are those ones. And when they seized them, the state can only seize the state ones. They can't seize up the federal ones. So they seized all of those 15 different acts. So that Land Rights Act and the Cultural Heritage Act, but they couldn't freeze the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act because it's federal legislation, it's federal government. So when the police kind of come here, because it's a sacred sovereign fire done from traditional owners and the community, all Goori people, they have a certain way that they have to approach the space. So we've sectioned out the space and it has ceremony in progress, and it's been up for those 12 days. So the sovereign fire, it all goes under the sovereign fire, that living heritage on the land. Today we learn a lot, because there's a lot of new law coming in with in the Supreme Court. They've acknowledged now first law and environmental law have the same values. So that's been set the precedence for all of our mobs now. And that's what it aligns with here too, because this is also an environmental issue too. We're going to kill two springs, life of country.
Steal the water at the same time.
So that's how we've come in and occupied this place as a sovereign group. We started that sacred fire on the 5th of April, and that states our occupation here as a sovereign people. And it can only be done on those Crown lands and with the support of mob that understands sovereignty. So we've been reaching out to Uncle Coco Wharton, and we've let Uncle Adrian Birragubba know and their mob, hey, what we're doing.
All other mob that's got, fight for spring and water in their country,
Yeah, come on down.
Come
sovereign
down,
mob.
He's right.
Because it's holding that old law
another up now. Yeah.
with the battle between the Crown and us, that sovereignty battle, on how we haven't ceded our sovereignty and given up on that.
Which people think was, in 1788, before when people started colonising. Oh, that was then, the sovereign versus the Crown. No, that's still happening. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And because of I noticed the native title process it's real divisive, and I believe we're going to see smaller battles being won like this than there's ever going to be won in some native title processes. Some of those processes are dividing our people, and the concept of sovereignty was never ceded is a one mob concept. It's all of our mob put value into, I think. Yeah, coming back to that. So the injustice that we're kind of yarning is there should be a bill pushed that you cannot seize Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander heritage, cultural heritage at all, no matter what government is in power. Because the type of things that we found out about today, which I'm going to release it because mob need to know about it, before the 1st of June, when the freehold land, the Crown land goes to freehold land, they were going to have Geica mob, which is the game infrastructure mob, utilise their own cultural heritage mob, do cultural heritage on this land. And pretty much only can do it because they seize the Cultural Heritage Act, and usually it's traditional owner native title groups doing it when you do it that way. So that's what I reckon you're going to start seeing is independent groups, private companies, because they've got a reconciliation action plan, because they can employ a cultural heritage officer or something like that, they think they can go into countries and do their own little ticker box survey and dig up Aboriginal remains, artefacts and country. And it's, you got to look at this aspect of there's colonial settler connections to a place, and there's cultural connections, 65,000 years, 80,000 years of cultural connections and DNA in the landscape. And when you look at it, that sovereign one mob approach, it's an issue that we all have.
mob are mixed in an environment where our tribes and clans become smaller and smaller because of development and other things, and then governments play people against each other.
Yes.
You know, at the end of the day, blackfellas are blackfellas. Yeah, we've got our differences between clans and tribes. Everyone knows that, but we all been in here surviving, no matter where we are in this country.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, we all still here, so we mustn't hate each other that much, or else we would have killed each other right by now. You know what I mean?
Yep,
But
yeah.
this is when that let's play blackfellas off blackfellas, and then for other gains that don't benefit anybody at the end of the day, but the people that are going to be making the money. So what does justice look like? Blak Justice for you, mob here in Victoria Park. What does that look like?
Blak Justice, yeah. It's a big thing. Yeah, because for us, we want to keep going strong up till the 1st of June when the mob come over. It's going to come down to the cultural review, because there's so many applications, a couple from traditional owner, native title groups and that. If the cultural review says that they can't start construction and all that, then we'll remain here as long as we can. This is as a community space. I think that's the aim going forward, because we want to prove a point that, you know, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities can have a space here in this park.
Yes.
Just like what the old people envisioned, you know?
Yeah, what they had before they left off.
Yeah.
And they left it off for us. Yeah,
So it's about pushing governments to the point where, you know, deed is given back or lease is done. It's a big justice call, but I think we need it at this point in time, Our mob's here, and
I think the
we
park
just hope people
needed
help
it
us
too.
and come down, eh?
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your call to action, I guess, for mob, and then also, you know, there's allies that are trying to help out. Like, what do you want people to know about this place, and what do you want people to do?
So we want mob to know that this place is a open, you know, Goori Tent Embassy. It entails all of the kinship system of southeast to northern New South Wales. They believe in sovereignty and believe their sovereignty has never ceded. And they believe in, you know, self-determination, mob education, you know, our own community spaces. They if people that provide workshops and stuff, you know, they can also, when we host the space, they can also come here, you know, welcome to country be done, and then they can teach people culture and be a place of sharing and learning and all that.
In the space we got here, because our grandchildren can be here too, you know. Same space with what the old grandparents was here too before us. And it's the energy in the space. You're not going to know if you're at home, but, you know.
Got to come down.
You got to come down and feel it and walk on, and, you know, walk up the top here, walk around, because you don't know, you know, the significance in it. When you walk in here, it's like the kids. It's the energy in the place is lovely. Yeah, you can't lose it.
What does this park look like in, say, 10, 20 years from now? If there's no stadium, what does it look like?
Yeah, well, where we are here near Gilchrist Avenue, at the end there, before the Yorks Hollow, we see this whole gully revegetated and all of the old drainage systems ripped up, and there's all the natural rocks and all that place through there.
Back
bit like how they did it to Stones Corner. They did it all through there.
Yep.
With the Wollongabba ward, the greenies there in that time.
Yeah, same thing happened over at Gabba too, Water Street, going down between the hospital.
Because that was all Kumbuki, crayfish country. There was an aquaculture, fish traps that connected to Norman Creek. So, yeah, you know, it was an actual aquacultural fish traps, to catch food. But the way they revegetated it there is real deadly, because it brings back that flow. But that's what we would do here.
Same thing.
For the gully. And then revegetate all of the bushland on either side. Yep. Maybe even close it off, chuck some wallabies in there.
Chuck some mongoose in there.
Have a little hall like that, because they the council are going to move soon.
Yep.
Before the 1st of June. So we thought about asking for that spot up there where the bunya trees are, because that's a part of an old campsite, all that high country.
Because the water goes both ways. It goes down their driveway and it comes down this gully here. Then it would have been a campsite there because the trees mark the spot. That's how you read country with the old tree.
And a big, like, your wall spot, big dance ground over here, so all our tribes and mobs can dance here, and there's space to host, events and stuff. Just empower this north side space. I'm a south side. I represent.
Hey,
me too.
So
Time to give.
just to maybe put some of that Musgrave Park vibe to the park here, Victoria Park.
Yep.
So that's why we're blocking out certain areas that have cultural significance, and because these whitefellas are all about maps. So if we have our boundary, that's what we're going to ask for back.
And it's all about the fire that stops them, Yeah, the fire there, the significance of it. It's a law too, Yeah. That's why we sit around it and talk. That's what we want them to do. Explain that the fire is the door stopper.
And we didn't come up with the grand ideas. This is acts of, building of our old people. 2012 they had the sacred fire there at South Bank, Musgrave Park, on that leased land. And under that lease given back by the Queen, it says it's for only Aboriginal use whatsoever. So Musgrave Park space is our country.
Yep.
So they had the sacred fire there in 2012 when things weren't going well for our mobs back then. Few mob got locked up doing it too, but the charges got dropped because it was a sacred fire. But it actually pushed the precedents in the Brisbane City Council and the courts. Sacred fires are allowed to be done within Brisbane City Council now, if they're a cultural fire.
Cultural fire.
So this is all of this building up of from the 70s, 72 Tent Embassy in Canberra to the 80s, the Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast to...
It's just like the fire backing up water, the fire element backing up the water element. The springs.
The law.
And it's been put in place. That's what we're trying to explain to them. Couldn't be done in any other paddock, but what they would say, but Victoria Park, consider it holes, grounds. Hey,
So, it's a build-up of that sovereign education. That's what we want the place to be, but where people learn about the sovereign education. We didn't come up with them ideas. It's what we learned with old people. It's when the pressure of the colony, you're not seeing justice for our mob, the black deaths and custody rates are going up and all of that. And these are these small avenues.
Too, for cleansing and trauma and all that. It still come back to that fire, for healing.
And the colony knows when these fires happen. They've had it in the early 1800s. They've smelt that fire. So when it happens again, it brings out that healing, and they're reminded of our sovereignty was never ceded, and that's the main kind of picture. And like
Animals
in regards to
too.
stadium, I think stadium can go out Hamilton way to that flat country.
Hamilton way.
Culturally survey the land properly for any hunting tools
there,
and all that. But then once you've done that, then possibly build. But involve all of the native title groups. Don't just involve one because it suits your agenda. And that's kind of our message to Geica and the government that we have at the time now.
For mob.
Mount Cravat's kind of a significant area. We would propose there, but it's a burial ground. Old Kagura, like Kidna country.
Yes.
Yeah. But, I'm sure there's plenty of other places for a stadium.
Yep. There's plenty of other places. There's race courses over there, but they love the Yatterman just like us. We love our Yatterman too.
Yeah, maybe Doomben Stadium or something. Whack it over there or something.
Yeah.
But, it's the sacred fire is about mourning for country, grieving for country too. So it's also a way of saying goodbye to the place too.
Yeah,
So we offer that too as a healing space for
right.
mob to do. But yeah, it's just keep
Sad.
fighting for each other. Blak Justice and injustice for land rights is definitely real, and injustice happens all the time in small little spaces. We just got to keep aware of that and stay one mob on sovereignty, and we're all one people, and we've never given up. I think that's it, eh?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So mob come down, put a leaf on the fire, come down, check us out, sit around, you'll feel the place when you're down here. It's about feeling the country, before they destroy it too, So I say a lot of families will come that have connections to here. They'll come and sit down and say goodbye to it,
We had mob crying, laughing, everything here,
That's right.
Yeah, just healing. Yeah. And so thank you for that, eh?
Yeah, no, thanks for what yous are doing, just to be able to see fire burning, water, know all of it comes together. It doesn't matter where, from Bummer to down here, Southways, Goori,
Yes.
at the end of the day, we all blackfellas and we all fighting for that same black
Cause,
justice for all of us.
Good.
So, yeah, I wish yous all the best for it. I'll still come down and, we'll get the message out to the mob. But, I
Yes.
appreciate the yarn and what yous are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
sister.
thanks for that, eh?
Yeah.
It's just a...
If you'd like to support Derek Sandy Jr. and Uncle Derek Orman and the Goori Tent Embassy, you can find them on social media at Goori Tent Embassy. Or if you're in Brisbane, head down to Victoria Park. All mob are welcome, just look for the fire. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Blak Justice. I'll see you next time. If you're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and need support after listening to this podcast, you can call 13 Yarns support phone line on 13 92 76. This service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Lifeline is also available to everyone. You can phone them on 13 11 14 or 1800 RESPECT on 1800 737 732.